right now and hopefully in the future, rather than just the debate concentrating on what we need to give up, what we can't do, which is very negative. And all of us, as much as we will try, even if all of us did a little bit here and there to change our ways, it still isn't going to be enough. That's the thing I think we have to get across. That this is a big challenge. This is a big task we're about to take on.
What if a simple jewelry box held the truth that could change everything? Hidden for decades, Princess Diana's most personal secrets were buried beneath jewels the world admired. But when her son, Prince William, uncovered them, what he found wasn't just a legacy of diamonds. It was a mother's unfinished story. A truth too dangerous to speak, a message left for him to carry, a key to a past never fully told. This is the untold story that the royal family never wanted you to hear.
Modest kind of instruction. So it's, or guidance rather than instruction. I don't think she believes too heavily in instruction. She believes in finding your own path, but with very good examples and guidance around you to support you. And I think that's what she's...
It's time to uncover what Diana left behind. It began as an ordinary day, one of those quiet afternoons at Kensington Palace, when the world outside seemed far away. Prince William, now an adult, had come to visit a small exhibit set up in memory of his mother, Princess Diana. The exhibit, a collection of her most treasured possessions, had been carefully arranged, each item a personal memento from her life, things she had once used or held dear. To many, they were relics, symbols of a princess beloved by the world. To William, they were reminders of a mother he lost too soon. The exhibit was familiar territory. He had seen these items before. Diana's favorite clutch, a handwritten note to Harry about his first school play, photographs captured behind glass, each piece a glimpse into her life, into the woman behind the public persona. But then something caught William's eye, something he hadn't noticed in years. A silver-framed photograph of Diana, wearing a soft blue suit, holding baby William on the palace lawn. His chubby little hands were tangled in her hair, and they were both bathed in the warmth of sunlight. It was an image of tender, private moments shared between mother and son, not the staged images so often presented to the world. But it wasn't the image itself that made William pause. It was the frame. As he looked closer, he noticed that the base was thicker than it should have been. Something about it felt unusual. Without thinking, he turned the frame over, and that's when he discovered it. A hidden compartment. It slid open with resistance, as if guarding something important, something meant to remain concealed. Inside, there was a small brass key, no tag, no inscription, just weight and silence. William didn't speak. He didn't call for help or ask questions. He simply stood there, holding the key, his mind racing. There was something instinctive about this moment. He knew, without a doubt, that this key wasn't meant for anyone else. It was meant for him. It was a message, a clue left behind for him by his mother, one that had waited decades to be uncovered. He didn't rush. With the key in his pocket, he quietly thanked the staff and made his way to the old linen storage wing, a place he hadn't stepped into since childhood. The room was dim and musty, filled with the scent of mothballs and the faint creak of old furniture. It was a forgotten space, a place that time had nearly erased from the palace's memory. But in the corner, tucked beneath an old Union Jack flag draped over an antique chest, there it was. A wooden box with gold accents, worn by age, but still holding its shape. William approached it, the key now in his hand. He inserted it into the lock, and the box clicked open with a quiet finality. It wasn't a dramatic moment, no sudden burst of sound or light, but rather a hushed release, as if the box had been holding its breath for decades. He lifted the lid slowly, unsure of what he might find. On top were the pieces the world had already seen: the sapphire ring, the pearl earrings, the tiara that had made headlines during Diana's public appearances. These were the jewels that had glittered in front of cameras, the ones that had represented royalty, fame, and wealth. But what struck William wasn't the beauty of these items. It was what lay beneath them. As he carefully lifted the first tray, he felt his breath catch. There was another layer beneath it, thinner, almost hidden. He gently tugged at the fabric, revealing a small blue envelope. His name, William, was written across the front in Diana's unmistakable handwriting. It wasn't dated, nor was there any other indication of what was inside. Just his name and the weight of a love that had been sealed in time. William's heart raced as he held the envelope. For a moment, everything in the room seemed still. He didn't open it right away. Something in him knew that this was no ordinary letter. It wasn't meant to be read in haste, nor in the dim light of the storage room. He carefully returned the envelope to the box, holding it close as if it were something sacred. It wasn't just jewelry. It was a message from his mother, a message that had waited years to be revealed. As he stood there, holding the box and the key, he felt a profound sense of connection. This was more than a discovery. It was a moment of understanding, a chance to glimpse the truth his mother had carried with her, a truth that had been hidden, not just from the public, but from him as well. William knew that whatever this box contained, it was meant for him to uncover, to understand, and perhaps even to act upon. The discovery of the box marked the beginning of a journey that would take him beyond the public images of his mother, beyond the jewels and the tiaras, into the heart of who Diana really was. What lay inside the box was not just a collection of royal artifacts, but a personal history, a story of a woman who had once been a mother, a woman who had dreamed of a different life, and a woman who had left behind a legacy of truth waiting to be understood. As William carefully closed the box and left the storage room, he knew that the key was more than a physical object. It was a symbol of something far deeper, something far more significant. The key had unlocked more than just a box. It had opened a door to a story that Diana had never fully been able to tell, a story that William would now be tasked with finishing. It was a responsibility he hadn't expected, but one he knew he couldn't ignore. And so, with the key in his pocket and the jewelry box in his hands, William walked away from that forgotten corner of Kensington Palace, not just as a son rediscovering his mother's legacy, but as a man on the brink of uncovering the truth that had been hidden for far too long. What he had found was more than treasure. It was a message, a piece of history, and a promise, one that would change the future of the monarchy and the world. The next day, Prince William sat quietly in his private quarters, the jewelry box resting in front of him. He hadn't opened it yet, still grappling with the weight of what he had discovered. His thoughts were consumed by the key, the box, and the letter from his mother. He could feel the pulse of history in his hands, yet he wasn't ready to open the letter just yet. He needed to understand more, to find out why Diana had hidden these items, what message she had left for him. His mind kept circling back to the photograph, the one with the silver-framed image of Diana holding baby William on the lawn at Kensington Palace. It had been a moment frozen in time, a reminder of a simpler time in their lives, before the world had descended into the chaos of fame, public scrutiny, and family dynamics. He remembered the warmth of the sun in the photo, the soft smiles exchanged between mother and son, the innocence that could be seen in their eyes. Yet, there was more to this photo than just the happy memory. The key had been hidden behind it, a key that seemed to unlock far more than just a physical box. It had opened a door into his mother's hidden world. As he sat there, pondering the significance of his discovery, he reached for the photo again, turning it over in his hands. His fingers traced the frame, the weight of the key still in his jacket pocket. He knew that there was more to uncover, more hidden pieces of his mother's story that she had left for him to find. He had always known that there was more to Diana than the public persona, the people's princess that the world had come to know. Now, with each new discovery, he was realizing just how much had been hidden away, just how much his mother had kept from the public eye. His curiosity was undeniable, but there was something more, a deep, almost visceral pull that urged him to seek out the truth. Diana had left him a trail, a path to follow, one that had been deliberately placed and carefully preserved. She had hidden these things not out of shame, but out of necessity, out of love for him, and perhaps even out of a desire to protect him from the very things that had made her life so difficult. With the key still in hand, William made his way through the palace once more. This time he walked with purpose, with a deeper understanding of what he was about to uncover. He had to follow the path Diana had left for him, and there was no turning back now. He knew where he needed to go. The old linen storage wing, a forgotten part of the palace that had been tucked away for years, its history buried under layers of dust and time. The room was as dim and quiet as he remembered it, filled with the musty scent of old furniture and forgotten treasures. The dim light flickered overhead, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch across the room, adding to the sense of mystery and nostalgia. The room was almost like a tomb for the past, a place where memories were stored but never revisited. And yet, William knew that this was the place where he would find more of the truth, more of what Diana had left behind. At the far end of the room, beneath an old Union Jack flag, he spotted the wooden box. Its gold accents gleamed softly in the low light, a stark contrast to the surrounding gloom. It was the same box he had seen in his mind's eye since he had first discovered the key. He had come back for it, and now, with the key in hand, he was ready to unlock its secrets. The lock clicked open with a soft, almost imperceptible sound. It wasn't a dramatic moment, but it felt significant. The air seemed to change as the lid opened, as if the room itself was acknowledging the unveiling of something long buried. William lifted the lid carefully, his heart racing with anticipation. What he found inside was exactly what he had expected: the jewelry. But it wasn't the jewelry that made his heart stop. It was the items beneath it, the things he hadn't expected to find. The first layer of the box held the pieces the world had seen: the sapphire ring, the pearl earrings, the tiara. These were the iconic symbols of Diana's royal life, the things that had made headlines, the jewels that had adorned her for public events. They were beautiful, of course, but they were also symbols of a life that had been on display for the world to see. They weren't the real Diana. The real Diana was hidden beneath the jewels, tucked away in a secret compartment that no one knew existed. As William lifted the first tray, he felt a shift, a subtle change in the weight of the box. There was something more, something that had been deliberately placed beneath the surface. He pulled at the lining gently, revealing a small blue envelope, its edges worn but still intact. His name was written across the front in Diana's handwriting, clear and unmistakable. It wasn't dated, nor was there any other information. Just his name, a simple word that carried with it an enormous weight. William's fingers trembled as he picked up the envelope. It wasn't just a letter. It was a message from his mother, a message that had been hidden away from him, a message that was meant to be revealed at the right time. He didn't open it immediately. He placed it back in the box for a moment, his mind racing with questions. Why had Diana left this for him? What was she trying to tell him? What had she known that the rest of the world didn't? He carefully closed the box, his mind filled with a sense of urgency. He had to know more. He had to understand what his mother had left for him and why she had hidden it away. The box wasn't just a collection of jewels. It was a symbol, a key to understanding a woman who had lived a life of immense public scrutiny, but had remained a mystery in many ways. Diana had kept secrets, but not out of malice. She had kept them to protect him, to protect herself, and perhaps to protect the monarchy from the truths that she had come to understand. William walked out of the room with the jewelry box in his hands, determined to uncover the next layer of his mother's truth. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was on the brink of discovering something that would change everything he knew about his family, about the royal family, and about his own place within it. But there was one thing that was clear. Diana had left him something far more valuable than diamonds or pearls. She had left him the truth, a truth that had been hidden away, waiting for the right time to be revealed. Back in his private quarters, William sat down with the box once more, the envelope still nestled inside. His thoughts were a whirl of emotions, but there was also a sense of resolve. He knew that this was a journey he had to take. Diana had left him this legacy for a reason, and he was ready to uncover it. The journey ahead would not be easy. It would require him to confront difficult truths, to face the hidden parts of his family's history, and to wrestle with the weight of the monarchy itself. But William was ready. And as he sat there, holding the jewelry box in his hands, he understood that the journey was just beginning. Prince William sat in his study, the jewelry box in front of him, still sealed and waiting. He had spent the last few days consumed by what he had already uncovered. His mother's personal belongings, her letters, the hidden truth that had been buried for so long. But he couldn't shake the feeling that he had only scratched the surface. There was something deeper, something more that needed to be uncovered. Diana had left him this legacy, and he was determined to understand it completely, to understand her fully, beyond the public image and the royal duties that had shaped her life. The first letter he had found in the box had left him shaken, but it wasn't the only item there. The box was filled with layers, items that had been carefully hidden, carefully placed in a way that suggested more than just a collection of jewels. These were pieces of a life, a mother's life, a woman's life, full of secrets and stories that had never been told. William knew that each item had been placed with intention, each piece a clue, each note a message that would help him understand his mother's legacy in a way that no one else could. He had already read the letter more times than he could count. It had been brief, but impactful. Diana had written it for him, her son, not for the world. In it, she spoke of her legacy, of the moment she couldn't explain while she was alive. The letter was filled with love and guidance, but it was also filled with sorrow. Diana had left behind more than just material possessions. She had left behind the story of her life, a story that was now his to understand and perhaps to finish. But now, as William sat in the quiet of his study, there was more to explore. He had found the first layer, the envelope, the letter, the sapphire ring, the pearls, the familiar items that had once adorned his mother. But these were just the surface. He knew that beneath them, there was more truth, more of what Diana had kept hidden. He reached for the jewelry box again, his hands steady but his heart racing with anticipation. He knew that he was about to uncover something that would change everything. The first thing he pulled from the box was the velvet pouch. It was delicate, worn at the edges, as if it had been handled with care. He unwrapped it slowly, feeling the weight of it in his hands. Inside was a necklace, unlike anything he had ever seen before. It wasn't the kind of jewelry Diana had worn for public events or state banquets. It wasn't flashy or designed to be admired by the world. It was small, delicate, and deeply personal. The gold chain was thin, almost fragile, and the charm hanging from it was shaped like a dove. William had never seen his mother wear it, not in any photographs, not in any public appearances. This necklace had never been part of her public life. It wasn't something that belonged in the spotlight. It was something else, something intimate, something private. As he held it in his hands, he felt a wave of recognition, though he couldn't explain why. There was something familiar about it, something that felt like it belonged to him, something that spoke to him on a deeper level. The necklace was a keepsake, a piece of Diana's personal history that had never been shared with the world. He gently placed the necklace down and picked up the folded photo that lay beneath it. The photo was creased, its edges worn with age, but it was still clear. It showed a younger Diana, standing barefoot on a beach. Her hair was windblown, and she was holding a toddler, William, as a small child. There were no crowns in the photo, no royal duties, no cameras snapping away at every moment. It was just a mother and her son, lost in a private moment, far removed from the world's gaze. William stared at the photo for a long time, his mind racing. He had never seen this image before, yet it felt like a key to understanding his mother in a way he had never been able to before. There was no grandeur, no formality, just a simple, intimate moment of connection between them. Diana had kept this photo hidden, tucked away, a reminder of who she was before the world knew her, before the pressures of royal life consumed her every move. On the back of the photo, in Diana's unmistakable handwriting, was a note. "This is the only version of me I ever wanted you to remember." William's heart tightened as he read the words. It was clear now that Diana had wanted him to know more than the public version of her, the image that had been created by the press and the monarchy. She wanted him to remember the woman, the mother, the person she had been before the cameras, before the crown. The photo, the necklace, the letter, they were all pieces of a much larger puzzle, a puzzle that Diana had left for him to piece together. She had hidden these items, not out of shame, but out of love and a desire to protect him. She had kept parts of her life hidden, not because they were unimportant, but because they were too precious, too intimate to be shared with anyone else. Now, William understood that these items were not just treasures, they were symbols of who Diana truly was. He sat back in his chair, his mind reeling. His mother had left behind more than just a legacy of charity and public service. She had left him a roadmap to understanding her life, her struggles, and her hopes for him. Diana had always been a complex figure, someone who had never fully been understood by the public. But now, through these hidden objects, William was beginning to see her as she had always been. More than a princess, more than a symbol, but a woman with a story, a mother with hopes for her children. As he continued to examine the items in the box, he found more, small things, but significant. A pair of earrings, wrapped in a handkerchief, as if Diana had placed them down in a hurry, planning to return but never did. He unwrapped them carefully, and as he held them in his hands, he felt a wave of sadness. These weren't just objects, they were pieces of a life that had been interrupted, pieces of a mother's story that had never been finished. William's fingers lingered over the earrings, but it was the next item that caught his attention. Beneath the earrings, there was another envelope. It was smaller than the first one, and as he opened it, he found just 2 lines of writing. "You gave me courage when I had none left. This is yours now. Use it to fight for what I couldn't." The words were raw, emotional, unmistakably Diana's. William felt his chest tighten as he read them again. This wasn't just a note, it was a message, a charge, a reminder that Diana had fought battles of her own, battles that had left scars she had never been able to share with the world. And now, she was passing that burden on to him. The weight of the note settled in his chest, and for the first time, William understood. His mother had never been a passive figure, never just a victim of circumstance. She had fought, she had struggled, and she had carried her pain in silence. But now, through these items, she was giving him the courage to fight for what she couldn't, to speak the truths that had been buried for so long. This wasn't just about jewelry or legacy. It was about responsibility. It was about carrying forward Diana's unfinished work. The following morning, Prince William awoke with a sense of quiet resolve. The events of the past few days, the discoveries, the letters, the personal items, had left an indelible mark on him. He had read the letters from his mother, touched the precious keepsakes she had hidden away for him, and in doing so, had begun to piece together a side of Diana that had remained hidden from the public eye. But now, he knew that he was standing at the edge of something much larger than just personal revelations. His mother's legacy wasn't just about the public image she had crafted for herself, nor was it about the jewels and memories she had left behind. It was about truth, responsibility, and the legacy of silence that she had endured for so long. The letter he had found beneath the sapphire ring had lingered in his mind. "You gave me courage when I had none left," it read. "This is yours now. Use it to fight for what I couldn't." Those words haunted him, not because they were a reminder of the painful struggles his mother had endured, but because they spoke to a deeper responsibility, one that he now realized he had to carry forward. The burden of truth, the weight of what had been hidden for so long, was now his to bear. He wasn't just inheriting a crown, he was inheriting a mission, a cause that had never been completed, a fight his mother had fought in silence but could not win. As William sat in his study, holding the jewelry box in his hands, he knew he had to go back to it. There was still more that Diana had left for him to uncover, more than he had to understand. He had already seen the surface, the necklaces, the earrings, the letters, but he was certain there was still something beneath it all. Diana had been meticulous in hiding these pieces of her life. She had placed them there not for him to discover in haste, but when the time was right, when he was ready to understand her fully, to comprehend the weight of what she had carried. He reached for the box again, his hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the anticipation of what he might find. As he opened it, he noticed something he hadn't seen before, an almost imperceptible seam along the lining of the box. It was as if there were something tucked away in the final compartment, something that had been hidden even more carefully than the rest. His fingers traced the seam, and with gentle pressure, the panel shifted slightly, revealing a hidden pouch. This was the final piece, the one that would answer everything, he thought. His heart quickened as he pulled the pouch from the box. It was small, delicate, almost like an afterthought, yet it felt heavy with significance. Inside, there was a locket. It wasn't like the other pieces of jewelry. There were no diamonds, no sapphires, no grandeur. It was a simple gold locket, worn at the edges as if it had been carried for years. It had no royal insignia, no distinguishing marks of status, just a clasp and a hinge. He opened it slowly, expecting to find a photograph, perhaps one of himself or Harry, or maybe even a young Diana. But instead, there was a small, tightly folded piece of paper. The ink had faded over the years, but the writing was still legible, unmistakable. It was Diana's handwriting, and as William unfolded it, he read the words that would forever change his understanding of his mother's life and his own place within that story. "Let them grow without the chains I wore," the note read. "Let them rise without the silence I endured." William felt his breath catch in his chest as he read the words again. The weight of them hit him like a wave, and he sat back, his mind racing. This wasn't just a note. It was a message, a declaration. It wasn't about revenge or anger or bitterness. It was about freedom, about breaking the cycle of silence that had plagued his family for so long. Diana had wanted her children to grow up without the same constraints she had endured. She had wanted them to rise above the expectations that had been placed upon her, to live their lives without the burden of secrecy and silence. And now she was asking William to carry that message forward, to ensure that the same mistakes weren't made again. As William held the locket in his hands, he realized that this was the key to understanding his mother's legacy. It wasn't about the public persona she had built, the charity work she had done, or the famous photographs that had been taken of her. It was about the truth, the parts of her life that had been hidden, the things that had never been spoken aloud. Diana had endured years of scrutiny, of control, and of silence. But now, through these hidden objects, William understood that she had left him more than just jewels. She had left him a compass, an invitation to change the future, to break free from the silence that had defined so much of her life. The locket wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of her desire for freedom, for truth, for healing. It was a reminder of who she had been before the world had imposed its expectations on her. And now, William understood that it was his turn to carry that message forward. He wasn't just a prince inheriting a title. He was inheriting a responsibility, one that would require him to confront the past, to face the truths that had been hidden, and to bring about the change that Diana had always dreamed of but never lived to see. The locket, delicate and simple, now felt heavier than any crown. It was the final piece of the puzzle, the one that completed the story his mother had left for him. It was a message of love, but also of defiance, a call to stand up against the silence, against the traditions that had kept his family locked in a cycle of secrecy. Diana had never been allowed to speak her truth fully, but she had found a way to pass it on to her son. And now, William had to decide what to do with it. He carefully placed the locket back into its pouch and returned it to the jewelry box. He knew that there was more work to be done, more questions to be answered. But for now, he sat in the silence of his study, holding the box, reflecting on everything he had learned. Diana's truth, her legacy, was now his to carry. The weight of it was immense, but it wasn't a burden. It was a gift, one that would guide him as he moved forward, one that would shape the way he led, the way he lived his life, and the way he raised his own children. As the day wore on, William knew that the discovery of these hidden items was only the beginning. There would be more challenges ahead, more truths to uncover, and more decisions to make. But he also knew that he was no longer alone in this journey. Diana's voice, her wisdom, her courage would continue to guide him. The legacy she had left him wasn't just about jewels or memories. It was about breaking free from the chains of silence, about embracing the truth, and about ensuring that the mistakes of the past were not repeated. As he looked out the window, the lights of London flickering in the distance, he felt a sense of purpose settling into his chest. He was ready to take the next step. He was ready to carry the weight of his mother's truth forward, not just for himself, but for his family, for his future, and for the world. And with that, the jewelry box, with all its secrets, would no longer remain hidden. The truth had been revealed, and it was time for it to be lived.